It's not who gets in the first word that counts, but who gets in the last word. Now, the guys that always get in the last word, brothers Tom and Dave.
Hi, I'm Tom Laz.
And I'm little brother Dave Laz.
And welcome to another edition of The Laz Word.
We have two guests on. Actually, we got three guests, right? Potentially, right? We have two new guests we're going to bring on, right?
Oh, yes. We're going to, even at midnight, people need a little laughter. And we want to introduce a new segment to our show, the Statler and Waldorf segment. Now, those of you remember Statler and Waldorf are the two old guys who would always rag on the Muppets when they were on stage. So we're going to give you a little Statler and Waldorf and tell us how you like it. The lazword@yahoo.com. Dump Statler and Waldorf, stay with them, see what you think, because everybody needs their tummy settled.
Amen.
You know, they say marriage makes a man dizzy, and it's true.
How is it true? What does it do?
Oh, I got a wife, and I lost my balance at the bank. Say, you know which Native American Indian tribe produced the most lawyers?
I don't think I know.
The Sioux! Where do you find the nerdiest place in outer space?
Somewhere in outer space.
On the dork side of the moon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Statler and Waldorf. So I hope we settled your tummy a little bit, even if you groaned and couldn't stand it. As long as you laughed, that's what counts. Now, our real guest.
Real guest?
Yes.
I don't know. He's real to real? I don't know. I don't use those anymore.
Not Memorex.
Yeah, he's not fake. He's real. He's not Memorex. And we would like to introduce to you State Representative Randy Ramey, I believe from at present Illinois' 55th representative district.
That is correct.
Oh,
thank you, Dave.
I need to do it like from Johnny Carr. Oh, that is correct, sir.
I don't have any ed in me.
And also the chairman of the DuPage County Republican Party.
Correct.
He's party chairman, as they say in old Russia over there. He's party chairman. But we have Representative Ramey here because he is now running for the state senate.
Correct. Thanks to our good friend and speaker, Madigan.
Emperor Madigan.
Well, as we all like to say.
Emperor Madigan. Sometimes I like to see the emperor have no clothes on. That would be funny, wouldn't it?
Scary, I think.
Let's try. I know. That might convert the state right there. Let's see if
Absolutely.
we can. Actually, we would like to strip him of his power.
That would be good.
Remove the cloak of power. Now, Randy, why don't you give our listeners a little background on when you became state representative? I believe you've been involved basically in politics since your high school years. And got involved in the Young Republicans in the early 1980s.
That's correct, Dave. And in fact, my political career starts even before that. I was born and raised in Springfield, and my family worked in the Capitol. So I was raised in the shadow of the Capitol, knew all the little hiding spots. But really took off in high school. Got real interested in the youth and government program. And through college, I volunteered in the college Republican program. And then when I got back, my career kind of took up my time. But then for 20 years now, I've been a precinct committeeman in Wayne Township. I'm currently their chairman. I was a Wayne Township trustee for 7 years. And now I've been a state representative for 6 years. And as I was mentioning earlier, with the remap that happens every 10 years, I was drawn in with another legislator, and so it came to fruition that I was going to run for the Senate, and that would be in the 23rd District.
Now, we'd like to also let you know that Randy is one of the, we talked about Senator Dillard at one point being one of the hardest working senators in Springfield, and we like to say that we've known Randy for a number of years as one of the hardest working representatives in Springfield. And, we're going to have a hard time when you move up to the state senate about, we're going to have to decide between Kirk and you as to who we're going to give that award to next year. We're going to have to see how the legislative session goes. But we are going to have when Randy becomes the state senator for his district. What number is the new district?
23.
23rd. Kirk is the 24th. Kirk Dillard is the 24th. You are be the 23rd senatorial district. And why don't you give why don't you let the listeners know what the new 23rd district encompasses? What towns
Certainly.
Are we talking about?
The east and west boundaries are basically from Route 59 to Route 83 through DuPage County. There's a small portion that's in Cook County, which would include Bartlett. So if we're going from the west side, you have Bartlett, Carroll Stream, West Chicago, Hanover Park, Bloomingdale. Then you have Wooddale, Itasca, Roselle, Medina, Addison, and then the whole town of Villa Park. A little bit of Glendale Heights, a little bit of Glen Ellen.
Now, one of the things we have always done is we will ask a candidate, what makes you better than your opponent? And our cardinal rule is if you're a guest on our show, it's your time. Your opponent has no name other than your opponent. What makes you better than your opponent, and why should people vote for you, Randy?
Well, I think Dave hit it earlier as one of the hardest working representatives. It's the product that gets done in Springfield, the effort that's put forward, and the things that you're doing. I had 6 pieces of legislation signed by the governor this past session.
Now that's pretty good most of the time, I think you're lucky if you're a chief sponsor to get 1 or 2 pieces. I mean, everybody introduces a lot of bills in the beginning, probably
Correct.
hundreds of bills. They go to committee. They get winnowed down. That gets winnowed down to a few bills, especially when you're in the minority situation.
Correct.
So to have even that many come out, I think is a major factor going toward your effectiveness.
Exactly, and that's something that I'm promoting, because to get things accomplished, you got to be able to work on both sides of the aisle, and that's exactly what I've been able to do. In fact, one of the biggest bills we finally got passed out of the House last session was what we call rapid repat, or rapid repatriation. The idea here is to save the state money by allowing an early release of nonviolent felons who have been found to be illegal. They are going to be deported anyway. So why not let them get out 6 months early, save the state money and space? It took me 4 years, but we got it passed out of the House 108-9.
Oh, so bipartisan.
Bipartisan,
That was a
absolutely.
bipartisan. That would be a hard one to put before Governor Quinn. I think you have a little trouble ignoring that one.
I believe it would. And so what we're working on now is to get it through the Senate this session that we're starting up here on January 31st. And then get it to the governor's desk. Because as you look, he just closed 2 facilities because he doesn't have enough money. We're not paying our bills. We got a $13 billion problem in the budget. So if we could start saving money, and bills like this can do that, we're going to push forward on it.
And with all that debt, who was it who've been in control of the legislature and all for the last, I don't know how many years?
Basically the last 20 or 30 plus years with a little interdiction over there. Not us, not the Republicans.
No, the Democrat Party has control of all houses of this state, and our deficit and our problems have really took off in the last 10 years with former governor who can't be renamed nameless because he's in jail. But he started not paying our pensions. He was funneling money out and spending more than we were taking in. And that's really when they took over all 3 aspects of government that our debt and our problems really skyrocketed.
Well, I think that we've all agreed that the time has come to pay the piper. At least we on the Republican side agree.
Yes.
That the time has come to pay the piper. Have you found that the Democrats have recognized that yet?
Well, yeah, they recognize it because in the last lame duck session, they raised taxes.
Oh, that part of it.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Oh, yes.
And then, of course, that didn't work out very well because we're still not paying our bills. We still haven't balanced the budget. And really all that the tax increase, the 67% tax increase has done is help pay the pension payment that they weren't paying for 10 years.
For 10 years. And that was what was, of course, under Democratic control regarding where money would be taken away from pensions or deferred from pensions.
Correct. And when they would present a budget to you, 20 minutes before you got to vote on it, 1,200 page budget, oh yeah, we're going to vote for that. And we had no input. So, the whole idea here is that it was their program, their budgets, and here we are today.
And the fact of the matter would be, even if you said, look, I haven't had a chance to read the 1,200 pages, I'm voting no, The Democrats had the majority, and it passed anyway.
It passed anyway. And then, campaign time, they would say, Randy Ramey hates veterans because he voted against them in the budget, or he hates seniors.
Yeah, because it's all in the budget.
It's all in the budget.
Yeah, it's either because the budget is presented to you as a do or die.
Exactly.
You don't get to say, I will pick out this, or this. And even if you offer amendments, they're going nowhere.
They absolutely they do have the majority, and they can pretty much pass whatever they want.
They'll kill you in the committee, or if the speaker lets it out, that takes a bit of skill.
Yes.
Yeah, and I said we'll be getting back after this segment, but you have been able to do that. You've been able to pull some interesting bills, and some bills for the betterment of the people of the state of Illinois, and get them to the governor's desk. Well, we'll be back at the last word with Little Brother Dave and Big Brother Tom on WIND 560 AM after this break.
Good.
Now, back to the show with the brothers that always have the last word, Tom and Dave.
Hey, we're back with State Representative, soon-to-be State Senator Randy Ramey. And we had covered the fact that he is an individual in a minority party who in one session has gotten 6. Count them. You need 2 hands to do that, 6.
See if I can remember my French. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
That's right? It. Very good.
I guess
6 pieces of legislation that he was successfully getting passed through the House in agreement with the Democratic Party and signed by the governor. Not 6 in his 6 years in the legislature, but 6 in one session. And we talked about the one with the saving the state money on the nonviolence.
A novel idea.
Now, what about the other pieces of legislation that benefit the people of the state of Illinois?
One of the ones that took about 3 months to work on in the last session was one I worked with actually Frank Maltino on the Democratic side of the aisle on saving the taxpayer money by allowing governmental agencies cheaper prices in the mandatory postings that they have to put in newspapers. Every day you're going to see these postings on the newspapers, and it comes from your assessors, comes from your school districts, comes from your townships, your counties. All governmental bodies have to put this in the paper. And what we were able to do was negotiate with the Press Association, with all the various governmental agencies, that they would get the lowest possible rate from these newspapers. And if they didn't do it correctly, there would be penalties to those papers. It took a lot of discussion. Like I said, about 3 months worth. Mr. Maltino was quite often doing other things because he's in the leadership on the Democratic side. So I was the main point man on that piece of legislation. We got it done, and it was signed by the governor last June, and saving millions of dollars.
So again, we're talking about you bringing up programs to try to save the state money.
Correct.
So that, again, I look at it that Republicans seem to say, how much money do we have, and then how do we allocate it? And Democrats seem to say, this is what we want to do and how much it's going to cost us. How do we get the money?
Right. And I think a lot of people have forgotten what our Constitution says. The state Constitution says that the government is supposed to be funding, well, it's supposed to be, the balanced budget, but we're supposed to be talking about and funding education, public safety, and infrastructure. Everything else is extra. But those entitlements
I hate that word. I hate the word.
I hate the word. Yes,
but that's what people call them. But those have been what is eating up our budget, and what has happened, and that's why we haven't been making our pension payments. Is that they take $1 billion that should go to a pension payment and use it to fund more and more
giveaways.
Giveaways, correct.
Let's call it what they are. They're giveaways, and they're. Aren't I a great governor? Look at what I'm giving
to you.
Correct.
And talk about sleight of hand on that. I'm going to give seniors free rides on the RTA. Now that means the RTA is down money,
right? Because
they're down fares. And then I think he tried to give some money to the RTA So it was a wash, but it still comes out as, look at me, I'm here to give seniors.
Right.
But you're still cutting your income.
Now let's remember, any money that government gives away, quote unquote, is not government money. It's your money. It's your money, Randy, your money, Tom, my money, and all of our listeners out there. It's your money.
Absolutely. And I try to tell it whenever I speak, the government doesn't produce anything.
That's right.
It's a money shifter.
It's
it
not,
takes and then gives.
It's not an entity in and of itself. Well, it's only government money. No. It's our money that the government took out of our pockets and then is using to benefit whoever happens to be in power.
Right. Well, and that's a big problem down there. And you see, and with that mindset, all these new programs they put in every year, then again have to be funded the next year. And there's been no accountability about these programs. Are they working? Are we helping anybody? But they just said, well, we received $500,000 last year. We need $1 million this year because of cost of living or whatever. That's how this works. And we never go back to see, okay, we funded this program. Does it work? And we've asked for a forensic audit of our budgets. We've asked for accountability of these programs.
We haven't gotten those.
Never got it.
And of course, now it's a giveaway. And for the government to want to cut a giveaway, now it's the big bad government or the big bad Republicans who want to.
Right, you're hurting grandma or grandpa or the poor guy that doesn't have a job or this family here or there, and that's the problem here. If we didn't start to begin with, those people probably wouldn't be in the situation as relying on government. As Republicans pretty much promote is that your self-reliability. You have to answer to yourself. And get out there and do what you need to do for your family, for yourself.
Well, I've always said if you happen to see the old Clark Gable, Jeanette MacDonald movie, San Francisco, and they, of course, in the end, they have the big earthquake, and Clark Gable gets religion and all, and some kid looks over the top of a hill where they're at this camp, and he says, "The fires are out," and then they all come looking at the top, and somebody says, "We'll build a new San Francisco." But they don't say,
the government,
"We'll call Washington and get aid."
Right.
No, we'll do it ourselves. Thank you very much. And it's my money. I earned it. Let me decide what I want to do with it.
Correct.
So, in terms of other ways of saving people money, Randy, what else have you got up? Did you pull out from your sleeve and put on the table? Well,
a new proposition we're going to be filing here in the next few days is a Medicaid reform bill. Currently, there's a lot of prescription drugs that come into the state and are disseminated to the people, but there's no tracking. And when these drugs go from site to site to site, a lot of times drugs that come in from out of the country will mingle into these systems, and we don't know what those drugs are. So there is a tracking system the federal government has put together that the state hasn't really gotten on board with. So if we can get on board with that and start being able to see where these drugs are at, where they're going, where they're coming from, where they're going, we could save up to about $1 billion.
Oh my gosh!
And
I mean, you know what's sad? Here's what's sad. What's sad is that even on the state level, we're using the word billion.
Yes,
saving $1 billion. And you still have and everything counts, Randy. Don't get me wrong. And I think that's part of the problem when somebody, well, you only save $1 million. You only save, no, it all adds up.
Exactly.
It's just that, even that is, $1 billion is a significant amount of money. And you got $123 billion in the hole and going up. So, but it just gets me. It just gets me that to use that word billion. I'm still not used to it.
I remember as a kid, you collected bottle caps. They want to see what $1 million looked like.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine doing $1 billion bottle caps. But yeah, I mean, that's something we're looking at and we're going to introduce. Another bill, simple bill, is that you would require a state ID when you apply for and try to receive any taxpayer-funded benefit.
Uh-oh.
A simple thing. We would think that you have to use an ID to get on an airplane, don't you? You got to use an ID to cash a check.
Yeah.
But we don't check residency to give a taxpayer-based benefit to anybody in this state. If you look at Rod Blagojevich's program of All Kids, 75% of that program was fraud because it was going to people who were not citizens of the state of Illinois. And so if we simply ask for identification, it's quite possible we can save $2 to $3 billion.
So we're already up to $4 to $5 billion with what you have proposed.
Correct.
And that ain't chump change, as we used to say.
Well, it would put a little dent in our problem. A $13 billion budget deficit, an $80 billion pension problem, a $45 billion Medicaid problem. So, all those companies that are going out of business because we're 7 to 8 months behind paying our bills, we got to start somewhere, and that's what I'm looking at.
I saw one blob. I saw one thing somewhere that even some people who won the Illinois lottery, they didn't get their payments right away because the state didn't have the money to pay it.
And that's supposed to be put away, in an account that only would go back and pay, the annuitants that would receive that fund. But that's another thing. They do a lot of swiping of funds from other accounts.
Because that way they don't have to raise taxes because they're taking the money that's there.
Oh, wait, they raise taxes.
Oh, no, I know that, but that's a way to avoid raising.
Yeah. Or at least look at it in the face and say, what do we have to do in terms of cutting? Well, that was funny. I had to say that was a little funny when I read that not even the lottery people are getting their checks on time from the great state of Illinois, the state that will be great again here on WIND 560 AM. We'll be back with Representative Randy Ramey on the other side of the break.
They're lawyers, so they'll always have the last word. Here's Tom and Dave.
Well, welcome back. We're here in segment 3 with Illinois State Representative, soon to be Illinois State Senator Randy Ramey.
And we'd like to, Randy, give out your website. Your website address over here is www.ramey for Illinois, or Ramey, Ramey, FORIL.com.
Correct.
If you want to take a look and what Randy Ramey has posted on the website, learn more about him, and see if you want to get involved with his campaign.
Absolutely. Looking for all the help we can get.
And not only that, look at some of Randy's ideas. And if you people, our listeners, are living in a Democratic area, why don't you give your representative a call and say, I saw these money-saving ideas that this Republican guy is pushing. How about you guys doing something like that?
That'd be a great idea.
Saving money.
But I don't know if you saw it, but there was a great article or opinion piece in the Tribune over the weekend, how they talked about the tax increase and how the Democrat Party has failed you because it has done nothing to fix the budget problem here in the state.
And part of the budget problem goes to the issue of job creation.
Correct.
Which we're pretty lousy at.
We are very lousy at because you see companies leaving this state, and when the jobs leave, so do the people. And if you have a less population, you're not getting any revenue coming back to fund the state. So you see with that tax increase that occurred in the lame duck session last year, companies are now coming to Springfield saying, we need a break to get away from this tax increase or we're going to leave. You saw Sears and the Chicago Mercantile Exchange last fall come to us and do those requests. My thought was, why don't we just repeal the tax increase? Then that gives a break to all business in this state, not just the big businesses who are able to come to Springfield and lobby us. So there was a House Bill 175, that I'm a co-sponsor on with Representative Mike Connolly, and we put it out there and never got called to the House floor for debate.
Did it get? Is it locked up in committee?
Didn't even get to committee.
Okay, I'm a little, and I think maybe some of our listeners would like to know, when you introduce a bill, I thought that it's automatically referred to a committee.
Yeah, it's called a review, and that's reviewed by the Speaker.
Oh, the emperor.
And then he decides if it goes to a substantive committee.
Okay.
So something like that would go to the Revenue Committee. And there it would go to die. He's got specific committees where he goes to let bills die.
So you know
Yes.
beforehand. Everybody knows what goes where and what. And the decision on where a bill that any legislator proposes, a representative, that's decided by the Speaker.
That is correct.
And the Speaker holds on all the power on where it goes.
Absolutely.
or when it goes or anything like that.
Right. And then when you try to use the rules to get that piece of legislation released, it only takes one no vote to not allow it to change. And usually that's his lieutenant there, Barbara Flynn Curry, that says no.
Okay, so one vote out of 118 can keep a bill from moving forward.
Correct.
According to the procedural rules in Springfield.
Correct.
Gee, who put that in? I wonder who got that in, where that idea came from.
The guys who are in charge.
Which is what we want to change.
Exactly.
Which is what has got to be changed.
So if you were voting substantively on the bill, a bill could pass 117-1, but it's never going to get voted on 117-1 if that one votes to never let it out of committee.
That is correct.
Oh.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, and then another bill that we had talked about last year was the workman's comp bill. Now, they said we passed workman's comp last year. Well, the reality is that we didn't pass one part of that bill that was dealt with causation. Where did the injury occur? Was it on the job or was it at home? That small portion can save companies of the state of Illinois billions of dollars. But we didn't pass that. So right now they're saying it's a overall savings to business of about $500 million. The reality is it'd probably be $100 to $200 million. A company decided between Illinois and Pennsylvania based on workman's comp. In Illinois, it would have cost them $250 million for workman's comp. In Pennsylvania, $50 million. Guess where they went?
Yeah, I wonder where they are. And these are the things that they're not glamorous issues, okay? But they affect their effect on us, the people of the state. They have far-reaching effect,
right,
when it comes to a company deciding, and not just General Motors or Sears or anyone like that. I mean, if you have companies and businesses that came to you for relief, certainly are those who have 50 employees, 100 employees, 1,000 employees, 5,000 employees. They're the ones that are the backbone of the state economy.
It's small business. They hire the most. They pay the most taxes. You are correct. They are the backbone. And those are the ones that are hurting the most.
And have they the ones that have come down to lobby? And you know what? I don't like to say, I mean, we heard the word, especially with Newt, lobbyist. Lobbyist is not a bad word because everybody has a lobbyist,
yes,
no matter what side you're on. And the purpose of a lobbyist is you need some input as to how it's affecting a particular business,
right,
or a labor union or anything like that. So, lobbyists have their good and they have their bad, but they're there to give you some information. And we'll be back in our next segment with State Representative Randy Ramey here on 560 AM WIND, The Last Word.
Didn't get enough of your family for the holidays? Here's two brothers you can always count on for the last word. Tom and Dave.
Welcome back to The Last Word. However, in this case, however, the Lazes are giving the last word to State Representative Randy Ramey, who is the Republican candidate for the 23rd State Senatorial District, moving up from the House. He's going to be moving up to the State Senate. And we have been talking about some of the intrinsic problems of having Democrats control the state.
Yes.
And what has caused the problems those have caused. We just been talking about the problems with job creation and how we've been losing jobs. And one of the biggest problems that, Wisconsin and Governor Walker have faced is pensions.
Right.
The funding of pensions. And let's a little bit of how we got here is not so much part of the problem. Certainly is maybe the generosity of the pensions, which my understanding is the state has probably faced. Part of the problem is that we didn't face it soon enough. That's number one. Number two is that money that was delegated for pensions was used elsewhere.
Correct.
And can't something be done to stop other marked funds that are earmarked, and in this way I'm using that as a good word, earmarked to cover a particular liability from coming and raiding the cookie jar? Well,
the reality is that you cannot pass legislation and sign a law that would tie the hands of another legislature or another governor.
Okay.
But the pension problem was recognized back in 1994. The Republicans took over the House and Senate in Springfield. And what they did is they put together a payment program to get our pensions back to fully funded. And what they were saying, there was going to be a certain amount of money every year that we're going to pay to the pensions. And it was going to take 25 years, I believe, and they would be back to fully funded. So 1995, that took effect, and we're making our pension payments.
Okay.
Come 2000, when Mr. Blagojevich came into the governor's seat, 2002, I'm sorry, he decided that we didn't need to make those full payments. And he would take $1 billion out here, $1 billion out there, and use it in other programs. And of course, as everybody knows, if you're not paying what you're supposed to be in your payment, that makes your next payment even more.
A little bit more, yeah.
A little bit more. So it's compounded itself over the last 10 years because we were cutting, or not even making the payment some years, or shortening it in others, that with the interests and borrowing, we have an $80 billion pension deficit.
That word again, Tom, billion.
Yes. And we're at about, the percentage may be wrong, but we're around 35-40% funded of our pensions, the state pensions here in Illinois. And with that problem, it puts a weight on our budget. It puts a weight on our rating value. And businesses look at the instability of that whole issue and what the government's doing, and they decide not to come to Illinois. Or businesses are here decide to leave Illinois because of that instability.
How important is a bond rating?
Bond ratings are very important because
not just for the purposes of borrowing from the state, Randy. I'm talking about when a business looks at a state. What do they look at bond ratings?
Absolutely, because they want to see what the financial stability of the state is. Because if you have a lower bond rating, that may say to the business that state is going to increase taxes. That state is going to increase fees, more regulation, and that may make a decision for them not to come to the state to bring new jobs.
And that affects the cost of borrowing money.
Correct. Your interest rate goes higher.
So if you have a AAA bond rating, you could borrow X amount of dollars, and I'm just going to pull this figure out at 1%.
Sure.
But because I have a lower rating, for me to borrow that same amount, I'm going to be paying 3%.
You're going to be paying a higher interest rate, and it's going to be harder for you to borrow because business or people that lend money will also look at the ability to pay back. And we have a problem. The flow of revenue coming to the state is down. Our outflow is up because of all the programs that they've instituted and want to keep and not cut. And of course, with less business and less population, less revenue it's a downward spiral here. And you can't borrow your way out of this. You can't tax your way out of this. You have to look at the budget realistically and start making the cuts that have to be done.
And I would just like to point out over here that a little recent just came up over here in the last few days, is that our credit rating has been downgraded to the nation's worst by Moody's investors.
But you can look at it two ways. We're number one in something.
The rating, for those of you who are a little bit more financially adept and want to look into this, the rating, according to the Associated Press, Moody blamed a low rating of A2 on weak management practices. And the most recent legislative session, of course, which we know the Democrats are in charge, which took no steps to implement lasting solutions on issues such as, how would you know, increasingly severe pension funding shortfall. I just pulled this up.
Right.
I just pulled this up when we started talking about it, just for the idea of it. And I mean, apparently we're worse than California.
Yes, we've been fighting them for the number one spot for the last couple of years, but now we've passed them.
Oh, here's another interesting statement over here. Further detailing the downgrade, Moody said Illinois' chronic use of payment deferrals to manage operating fund cash presented a major challenge to its financial well-being.
And it's been a shell game back and forth on that budget because the Constitution says a balanced budget. It hasn't been balanced for quite a few years now.
Well, is there any way that maybe a taxpayer could even bring a lawsuit to say you got to balance the budget?
You would
as
hope.
if it would go anywhere.
The Attorney General is supposed to keep that in mind.
That's Mike Madigan's daughter.
Well, we'll be back here with Representative Randy Ramey in our final segment here on The Last Word, WIND 560 AM.
Now, back to the show with the brothers that always have the last word, Tom and Dave.
Okay, we're back here on our final segment with Representative Randy Ramey, candidate for State Senate in the 23rd Legislative District. And, the Huffington Post is not known really as a friendly, I would say, a Republican-friendly environment.
Right.
And they have, in particular, I'd like to tell people, there's the HuffPost Chicago, www.huffingtonpost.com, where you can look up HuffPost Chicago, that is posting the story about how bad the ratings are, that we are the worst. That we are the absolute worst in terms of our ratings, in terms of our financial stability. And it's going to take your election to state Senate. It's going to take more. It's going to take basically a Republican takeover of this state to stop this insanity.
Correct. And the unfortunate part, though, is we went through a census and the remap of the state here recently, is that the Democrats drew the maps and they drew them to protect their majorities. But I have a very good outlook of the elections coming up this fall. I think people see who's been running in this state into the ground. If we saw in the last gubernatorial election, even though a Republican didn't win, he won 99 counties of 102 in Illinois. So I think people are paying attention. I think we got some good candidates out there. And I think there's a possibility we can take one of these houses back.
Well, you bring up the interesting point, though, the demographics of Illinois. You've got to deal with the reality of Cook County.
Correct.
And as long as the voters in Cook County seem to just blindly go in and pull a Democratic lever, doesn't matter whether it's good, whether it's bad, they're just so Pavlovian conditioned.
Well, I always like to ask the question when I speak to somebody who says they're a Democrat, I say, why? And the answer 90% of the time is, well, I've always been that way. Well, that doesn't tell me why. Do you believe in the philosophy? Most of the time they don't. Well, my parents voted Democratic, my grandparents voted Democratic.
Yeah, but it's not your dad's Democratic Party anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not the one of JFK cutting taxes to increase and stimulate spending. So in ways of helping, particularly for those of you out in DuPage County who share DuPage County with us, we're having our annual Lincoln Day dinner coming up.
Correct.
And that's coming up on February 10th.
February 10th at Oak Brook Hills. It's a site that we've been at the last few years. It's a big event for us. As you mentioned earlier, I am the chairman of the Republican Party in DuPage County. And we have Senator John Thune from South Dakota coming in as our main speaker. He was successful in beating Tom Daschle a few years back, and he's on the short list of vice presidential candidates.
I was going to mention, I heard that, yeah.
Yes, and so he's a dynamic speaker, and I would invite anybody to go to our website, DuPageGOP.com, and fill out our form for the invite and come see Senator John Thune.
Yeah, we'll let you, in DuPage County, we'll let you in.
Absolutely.
If you're a Cook County Republican, you're certainly welcome. If you're a Cook County Democrat and you want to get a different view of life, you're more than welcome to join us as well and find out what the other side says.
Absolutely.
And it's a fantastic event, and we look forward. And of course, it's a fundraiser. And with that, is the money that we use is to defend the Republicans in DuPage County. And as we've seen with the remap, they cut us up pretty good to try to break that majority hold here in DuPage. But we got great candidates out there. We're going to be supporting them all and look forward to a clean sweep come November.
They may cut us up, but they won't cut us down.
That is right. Absolutely.
That's free. No copyright, Randy.
There you go.
Well, we'd like to thank you, Randy, for Representative Randy Ramey, a candidate for State Senate. in the 23rd Senatorial District for coming on and
Thank you, Dave.
letting
Thank you,
the
Tom.
voters know what's up.
We need,
and next week we will have Ron Sandick on, who is the candidate for state representative in the 81st State House District. So until then, you know that you may get the first word, but Tom and I are always going to get the last word.